Welcome to Auntie K's, your favorite radical queer indigenous auntie, bringing you tarot every day. Hello everyone and welcome to Auntie K's Tarot. I am doing the 2024 wrap-up, the tarot wrap-up. What were the decks I got this year? What are my overall feels? Did I stick to my tarot shopping goals this year? How does it all break down? How did decks come into my collection? And also what left? So we are going to get into it tonight, and we're getting to that time of year. I'm offering my Wheel of the Year spread, 5 spots a week. 2 spots where you can book me through my link tree through my website. They will be in the description box. Okay, so my goal this year was to try and keep my shopping to wish list decks and Kickstarter decks, and I largely did that. I did buy less decks. There were several more expensive decks on that list. Largely buying decks this way paid off in that I was happier with my choices this year, and I thought more about my choices this year. Of the decks on the table right now, and I know you can't see all the decks on the table, but I have them all out here. Everyone was purchased in 2024, except for the Game Marseille, where I backed it on Kickstarter in 2023, and it, of course, arrived in the earlier part of 2024. I think it was around the spring, near the start of spring. I think it was March, perhaps. Yeah, I think it was March when it arrived, which was when it was expected to arrive. And let's go through this. Okay, so wish list decks. So my wish list decks, it wasn't a goal, but I'd been following the Game Marseille coming along. It was on my wish list to back it as a Kickstarter. But it arrived this year, so it doesn't really follow those shopping parameters the same way. The African Tizama Tarot was on my wish list. The Estrella Tarot was on my wish list. It is when I made the decision that I was going to do this. It was around the spring. Tarot in Space was on my wish list and gifted to me. The 5-cent tarot was on my wish list. On my wish list, I had the Tarot by Mr. Freiburg, but I saw he was doing a mermaid tarot, and I was like, I'm going to get one or the other. And I was like, yeah, I'm getting the mermaid tarot. I want a mermaid tarot way more than I want a skeleton tarot. So I got the Tarot Sirena. I watched the Star Maiden on some reviews and kept going back, and I had it in a shopping cart for a long time. I finally said, this is on my wish list, and eventually I did get it. Tarot Moody, I got on Kickstarter. I found it on Kickstarter. The Kalo playing cards, I found on Kickstarter because I got the Aztec Tarot from the same creator. It didn't fund, so when it went on his Etsy, I got it. So it's kind of a Kickstarter tarot, but also I knew he said it would come out on Etsy, and so I was waiting for it. So it's also kind of a wish list deck. And I've backed the Craft Felt Tarot and it will arrive next year in 2025. Oh, my friend makes this goldenrod brightening buttercream. So her store name is Cedar Moon Apothecary. She is based in Alabama. She is indigenous, and it's been going on my chapped skin because I wasn't wearing gloves running out for smokes, and it has done a number on my hands in a very short amount of time, a matter of days. It went from fine to chapped while I was at my sister's, and I got home and started doing this more routinely. Okay, so decks that were gifts, Garden Dragons was a gift that had an interesting story and took a long time to be found. All right. Vivid Kingdom, and which got massive water damage. Very disappointing. It was hard to figure out getting it to me. I'll figure it out again. I really do like this deck. It got massive water damage. And it's such a cute deck that I'm not sure if I like the water damage. Some of the cards are quite, I don't know. I'm still sad. I'll decide when I'm less sad and able to make a logical decision. So Vivid Kingdom and Haters Exposed were decks I looked at, watched walkthroughs of, and knew I wanted. I was so drawn to this, and I had worries I also wasn't going to like it. But it turned out I needed to not listen to my worries. I was right. The Metanoia was, I watched videos. It was really pretty. I doubted I was going to be happy with it. I got it anyway. I have mixed feelings about it, but it's still pretty. The Cartomancer's Tarot I've passed on to one of my kids. It was an impulse buy that I felt meh about. Linescape's Tarot turned out to be a well-done counterfeit, but it's counterfeit. The cards aren't well done, but the boxing made it easy to fool me on, because it came in a 2-piece hard box. I was well fooled by that, and I'm not using it. But I got it as an impulse buy because there was a wish list deck I wanted, and it was expensive, and I was like, I should look for decks on sale that got a similar vibe, and save up for what you want was lesson number 1. And lesson number 2 was, in this world of counterfeits, you can't search for something on sale anymore because you get shown all the counterfeits. The Grinch That Stole Christmas was a boredom impulse buy. It's cute. It's not everything I wanted. I'm making it work for like the couple weeks I'll use it this year and maybe, in the future. Art Oracles was also technically an impulse buy, but I was on a trip to a museum with my youngest and some friends, and so it's also a memory purchase. You know what I mean? It was also a memory purchase. Let's organize and rank these decks as to my faves and see how that goes, how I would rank them. going to talk about the Oracle deck separately because it's really not a fair comparison in my eyes. It's not a fair comparison in my eyes. Okay, so let's talk about these. That was me just organizing them, being like, what were my faves? Like, who goes where? Who goes where, and then let's talk about it. This Oracle deck has to go in here. We'll talk about it, and then we'll talk about these oracles, which I don't know if maybe I am going to rank them. This one's harder because I mostly use it, but I probably would have put the Cartomancers like here. I didn't hate it. I passed on to my kid. There was a deck I hated. It was AI. I just got rid of it. It was an AI deck. I was so mad. Sorry. Okay. What was it called? The Paper Quill and Norman by Root Weaver on Etsy. AI deck. Okay. So I did not get as many decks this year, but I think I made really good choices, and we are going to talk about that. All right, so this is how I ended up ranking them. Let's talk about the top row. African Tazama tarot. It is packaged like a piece of art. It has a well done guidebook I've partially read. The cards are fantastic. They're very thick. It also comes in a velvet bag. Everything about it is absolutely gorgeous. A bunch of my cards got water damaged. This one mildly did. Only 2 cards were permanently in a bad damaged. One more than the other. It's not really impacting me using it, even though the cardstock's thick, and I bought it thinking it's very likely I will just use this deck. Occasionally, and I'm maybe just getting it. It's my favorite card in this deck, I think. And maybe I'm just getting it for the art, and that's okay. But I use it because I really do love it. Why am I putting that back in there? It needs to go back on the table where it was. Star Maiden Tarot is a mass market deck. Really chunky guidebook. It's pretty. It's beautiful. I like the simple constellation backs. It has these nice ice blue edges. I use this deck a lot, so that is going to wear. It has a bit of a storybook look to it, a layered look to it, and I really like that, which is what makes me feel I'm going to really like the Craft Felt Tarot. And I love this death card. It's a really nice deck. It's very simple, out of the box read. And even the Three of Swords is beautiful. It's a nice out-of-the-box read. Even though it's beautiful, it's not like a positive vibe spiritual bypass deck. It is a beautiful deck. That's currently got a bunch of cards very upside down. This is an easy to use deck, like I said, and that's a good deck. I like this Four of Swords, the knight resting in the window. And I've been teaching my friends a class, and this deck is good for when I'm doing sample reads in RWS. I'm doing RWS for two of the friends and TDM for two of the friends in the same class. Haters Exposed. I'm not using the whole deck. Some of the cards I can't really use them on the hotline because of hotline rules. And I do have two such cards in the deck, so if it needs to be there, I know. There's a lot of cards I was like meh about, and there's some that felt repetitive. So I still kept a pretty good chunk out on my work table. It's just stayed there. And there's apparently spelling or grammar mistakes, but my brain just fixes them. And spreading rumors about you, competition, always trying to one-up you, the person causing you negative energy is an air sign, trickster spirit. There's some that are in here that tells me it's not as big or as bad as you think, or it has a variety of feels in it. And I've said before, I mostly use this deck actually for interpersonal issues, particularly at work. This deck is fairly new. Its placement might change. I suck at magnetic box openings. I hate them. It's up here. It's a beautiful deck. It was decent guidebook. It was on my wish list as one of two choices. I've only had it for a week or two. So my assessment of it is it's new and it's mermaids, and I love the color palette. It's a pretty easy deck to read. I don't know if every choice is a choice I'm like completely down with, but none so in a jarring way where it's in where I'm like, oh, that card. Like none of it's like that, right? It's a beautiful deck. I'm really enjoying it. I'm using it a lot right now, but it is pretty new, so there is that to be said about it. Put those back up there. These two kind of feel like a tie. Maybe these three. And there are similarities in that. This is a Marseille deck with this moon person throughout the deck. And the moon person has these pretty expressive eyes and face. And it's charming. I think I read a little bit sweeter with it. The Marseille aspect is more pippy. Like the pips are pippy versus Marseille. But the quartz and the, it has a Marseille feel to it. And the quartz and the majors are Marseille. And I really adore this deck in a charming kind of way. So you're probably really wondering how this deck is ranking very closely with these other two decks for a similar reason. And we will get to that. Oh, I really like this deck. Okay. Might bring Moody out. The Estrella's been out, but since we're doing this, I might bring Moody out and put Estrella aside for a little bit. I really like the colors in this deck. I think the Marseille aspects are done very well. And the people are just charming. And their faces and their bodies are really expressive in a quirky kind of way. And I love it and find it charming, like I said, in a really similar way to the Moody Tarot. And I adore these colors. Oh, I so adore these colors. They are completely up my alley. And the people are fantastic. It is a diverse deck. And it is gorgeous. It's just gorgeous. I got the linen edition, and I love linen. I really do love linen. It's been on my deck. I'm just switching it out now spontaneously as I do this with the Moody. It's spent quite a bit of time on and off my table. And really how these decks are ranked are largely, I have to say, a reflection of use. Amazing deck. Amazing. Tarot in space. These people also are quirky and expressive. We have repeat characters, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it's telling a story that does have a limited number of characters. There is diversity going on in this deck. I'm not loving the renaming of the courts. It's funny, like I did that on my first deck, and I'm not going to do it again. Because even though I'd like the courts to have different names, I hate trying to remember all the different names for all the different courts. So I wouldn't do it. Rockets, lasers, comets, it's planets. I get it. It's easy. That part's straightforward. Yeah, I love the expressions and the quirkiness of the people. So these three decks were like 0.1 apart in ranking them, to be perfectly honest. Those decks. All right, so we are on the back row then. Okay, the Oracle decks. So there's some good memories to go with this. This has not extensive, but a decent guidebook. It's tiny print. It's useful. The cards have 3 different sets of readings here. Jeff Koons. The future is big, bright, and shiny. I think that's like overall advice, work advice. Your balloon can't pop, but your pop can balloon. What were the definitions of the types of advice? Hang on. Oh, life, work, and inspiration. So the future is bright and shiny is life. Then the work, inspiration, learn the difference between camp and kitsch. Here we have life. Your soul is composed of the same dots as the universe. Work, distinguish yourself from your mirror image. Inspiration, show them your hallucinations. It's a funny, campy deck. It is big failing is that the box might make you think it's much more inclusive than it is, but there's your inclusivity. I think there's one that isn't on the box. So not an inclusive deck, but quirky, an interesting representation of art accepted and seen in the Western eye, and it can be fun to use in an oracle reading. It can somewhat be a bit of a stretch. Also, I think I might put it out on my oracle options that I have, because I've added oracle readings to what I'm offering in terms of categories. You can find me on at work. Garden Dragons. I did use this for work, but realistically, I mostly use it for myself, or occasionally it is easy to grab off my shelf. It does have a guidebook, but I just like these. Coffee Dragon, Energy, Eggplant Dragon, Fun, Honeydew Dragon, Gratitude, Turnip Dragon, Resilience, the Grape Jelly Dragon, Childlike. It is a charming deck, and I quite like it. Okay. And then we move down into the second row, the Gay Marseille. This is also a fun, quirky, political and diverse deck. It's a Marseille deck. Sometimes it impacts me the same way Tarot Neo-Colonial does, where my other inspirations take over and want to politically rant. It can be a great deck for politics, a great deck for myself. I do occasionally use it with clients. It's a great read for any client. But like I said, some decks, they hit and speak to like a different aspect of you that isn't necessarily what your clients want. This would be one of those decks for me. Some of my personal decks are like that. Okay. The 5-cent tarot. This was upside down the whole time I had it showing. This was on my wish list. I will keep this deck. I'm glad I got this deck. It is absolutely gorgeous. I got it as part of like what I call a collector's deck. Hang on. My potpourri's a bit. Forgot to refill the water. I wanted an animal deck. I wanted something with this feel and aesthetic that wasn't racist. Safe way to go is always animals. I do need my glasses to read the keywords, and I wanted the keywords as an animal deck. Like, your opinion on an animal is generally not my opinion. And I need my glasses, and I do find the line work kind of distracting. I occasionally use it as clients. If I put it out, I'll use it a few times. And I'll reach for other decks more, because it is in the second row of this year's rankings. But like, we're not at any failures. Like, there's things that I wish were different about this deck. I really like this deck. I don't use animal decks a lot, so I also didn't have the expectation I was going to use it a lot. If the keywords were bigger, I would use it more, and I do wish that. This is my favorite card in this deck, Turtles all the way down. I really like this deck. I didn't know if I was going to. There's a lack of diversity other than witches and trolls and things. Some of the people have exotic appearances, features. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. So there's that. It is pretty fun to read with as a playing card deck. It is illustrated. You can get ideas that you would expect to find in a playing card deck out of the images in the cards. And this is Vivid Kingdom. And if I don't get over my heartbreak and use it warped like this, and this is the problem with it, is you can't make a nice tidy pile with it. That's why I need a new version. Or again, new version. I need a new version. I do. Okay. You cannot make a tidy pile with it anymore. It's heartbreaking. Kahlo playing cards. Artsy, indigenous artist. I had some of my own political issues with Kahlo, which I knew when I bought this deck, but I quite like this take on it. It's a fun playing card deck. I occasionally use it. You have to use this just straight up knowing playing cards, reading playing cards. It's not illustrated in the way the Vivid Kingdom is illustrated. And sometimes that's a good thing. Illustrated, but there are a lot of cards that are very similar. And there are two sets, I think, that are the same, or two cards that are the same. Some that are very similar. So I gave it some very base keywords and timing, and I'll use it for the season. This is the card that's two of it. This and one of the kings. 8 of diamonds and one of the kings. I'll hopefully feel inspired to pull it out next December. There wasn't a deck I don't use. I even keep pulling this deck back out. It Takes Time is a good extra card. It's pretty. This comes up to show you there's some diversity, but it doesn't really meet my standards. It is really pretty. I do like the size of it. I don't like that it's matte. It's small, so it's easy to shuffle. I want to like this deck, and then when I grab it to read it, it's not my fave. And I don't know. When I go through it like this, I'm like, it's fairly diverse, but I know I did a count, and it wasn't really, but it is pretty. But I think it was my a lower ranking deck. Like, it was last on my ranking of decks I got this year. Ones that the time is now. I also like having that in there. You know, I'm keeping it. I use it, but there's other decks I definitely recommend more, clearly. But I think overall I did really well in my deck choices for the year. And there was something else I wanted to bring up in this year. So I have been pulling decks out onto my table that I don't use or hadn't been using all that much or needed to cycle back in. And there were some stars that really did stand out in that way. And I'm glad that I'm glad that I did that. I'm glad that I put them into that work, gave them that chance, and enjoyed that experience with them and that pulling them back out. Other stars of the year. Let's call them that. The other stars of the year. This deck accidentally got a bad rap from me because I got it at the same time as the deck I was disappointed in, Tarot of Life. It is an amazing and beautiful deck. The Aztec Tarot was a Kickstarter I got last year. Same artist as a Callow, playing cards. And this is a deck that I absolutely adored. It wasn't something I pulled back out because I hadn't been using it. I have been using this pretty consistently. Decolonial Tarot, which really should just be called Brown Disney, unapologetically Brown Disney, is beautiful, and I've used it quite a bit. The Teddy Tarot Gold Edition is cute and adorable, and I've consistently used this deck quite a bit. It doesn't go easy just because it's teddy bears. It's a fantastic deck. The Game Marseille made me be like, man, I love my political tarots and I need to come to a way to read with them despite it. This one's also awful to shuffle. But I did do several readings with it. And I did some political readings for all of you with it. And it's a great deck. And I really like it. And so they were also star decks of the year. A deck I got for me and loved, I threw on my table and used in client readings and had a good time using that. It is the Untamed Mysteries Tarot, and it's an animal deck. And it has a journey you go through with it. Some of the cards are a bit too of a positive read for me. 9 or 10 of Swords is one of them. But I can still translate it into how I would read it based on, despite what is in the guidebook. Although the guidebook's also great. And it's an absolutely gorgeous deck. And I'm really glad I pushed myself to use this animal deck with some of my clients. And so that is my 2024 year in review, folks. See you later.